Yeah,
I
well,
don't know what about that. Hopefully, when we're live, that will all sort itself out. I get that sometimes with yours. I think it's the internet. All right. Morning, everybody. Good morning, Mike. Welcome to Talking Niagara this morning. Um, so, and the title for this morning's show is really "What Next for Niagara," because one of the things that they've done out this year is they've said, "What new attractions do we need to request?" You know, there's a request form going into the council. You can go to let's talk Niagara Falls let's talk.niagarafalls.ca / next great idea. So if you want to fill that survey in, feel free to do so. I'm going to put the link. I'm going to put the link actually in the comments so that everybody on all the platforms can make their comments. Okay, that's it.
all right. Well, I think here on this show we've made our decision because we're going to change the name of our show to Talking Ferris Wheel.
Well, here's my I'm just about to send mine off live, right? So and here is a complaint, right? What is your relationship to Niagara Falls? Required. Okay, I get this required. I live in Niagara Falls. I work in Niagara Falls. I'm a business owner or developer in Niagara Falls. I visit Niagara Falls. This is a radio button type thing. Well, what if you happen to work and live in Niagara Falls, or live and have a business in Niagara Falls? You've not taken that into consideration because it's not done correctly. All right, it should be a multi-choice box, not a radio box. Okay, so here's my things. Number one, a solid no to any thoughts of a new Ferris wheel. Full stop, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. Number two, develop the new.
Are you sure about that?
Develop the Marineland property as a theme park. The city should purchase this property if necessary. Number three, historical tourism. Make displays and hotels out of the power station properties. Good idea. We should show people how they work. The Lundy's Lane battle site needs to be developed with summertime tours led by local people. There we go. That's my thing, and I've just submitted it now. There we go. So I've had my say. All right. So Ricky says yes, yes, yes. And then he says,
All right, what does
boo,
Mike
boo,
say?
boo.
What's Mike? Read off Mike's.
Mike's one was okay.
Read off Mike's suggestions.
Hi, I heard you were looking for an attraction idea for tourism. I would like to suggest an outdoor water park in the summer and a skating park in the winter. That's an interesting idea. Yep. Right, those are all good ideas. All potential money makers.
Look, especially if you have kids. Like you got kids, they're gonna get pretty bored of everything else, but kids can have hours and hours of fun in a water park, right? And blow off steam.
Yeah.
So that you could go around and look at the falls and everything. Before too long, the kids are pretty bored.
Yeah.
But put them in a water park, put them in a pool, and they're happy.
Well, and the good thing about that is, hey, if you've got the water park in the right area, you go walk in the morning down the falls. You take the kids to the water park in the afternoon, and if you got next to the water park, you've got good cafes and bars and that. Sit there all afternoon, drinking and eating while the kids have fun in the pool. Isn't that such a great idea?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a good idea, Mike. Absolutely. Thank you. Okay. All right. So that's what they're saying. Basically, fill in the survey. I don't know what the deadlines are. Probably in the next month or so. Fill in the survey. I'm glad it's free form because I just filled in what I want. What I'd have hated to have seen was a list of 5 things that none of them I liked, where I have to force one of the 5 things at least. you know.
Yeah.
All right.
So anyway, and they're like, yeah, aside from aside from the Ferris wheel, I know we could get a Ferris wheel that you can load into the water park and just get sprayed all the way around. But anyway, there's anyway, I don't know what else we got, but that's a good idea. Look, there's many different things. We get a monorail, and why is it that we have to have another big attraction? Now, the thing I like the most about the suggestions I've heard was the historical thing. We haven't really exploited the historical thing very much.
No, we don't.
Have we? We during the 2 years that celebrated the 200 years of the War of 1812, from 2012 to 2014, we had people in the parks dressed up as American or British soldiers, or sometimes even indigenous people. Yeah. They had reenactments, that kind of thing. They should do a little bit more of that, I would think.
Well, I think
maybe have a little drama in the park for every once in a while. Have a couple of a platoon of British soldiers coming on a platoon of American, and then have a mini fight just so the tourists could see it. Yeah. And
it's unfortunate that the area around where the battlefield is located has been developed, to put housing in. There's a cemetery in there, and I'm not objecting to any of that lot, by the way, but it's unfortunate because if it was open land, one could actually one could do walking tours of the entire area and show the whole concept a lot, show what happened with the battle. It's like over there is where the Americans came, and this is where the British came from to defend the hill. Right? You could
here's where the militia did it.
And you could show the lines clearly by somebody who's knowledgeable. I think walking tours are a good idea for the Lundy's Lane battle site, but we need a bridge across Lundy's Lane.
Possibly. But yeah, we could really exploit that. Now, unfortunately, at one time we had here the Niagara Falls Museum, and it had Ramesses I, the mummy of Ramesses I there. And unfortunately, they didn't know what to do with it. When a certain person bought it and he offered it to U of T, they didn't want it. And finally, an Atlanta University bought it. And it turns out, it was Ramesses I. Now, that could be the guy who expelled, in Bible stories, the guy who expelled the Hebrews from the land of Goshen, basically, from Egypt. It's that story, of course, there's a lot of problems with it, but
there's a lot of problems with it. Exactly.
But I mean, for people who have biblical knowledge or interested in that would have been a perfect thing for a lot of
it's a possible historical thing that one could actually lead into exactly that kind of exploring that kind of history. Yes, I get it.
And not only that, but Ramesses I was the father of Seti, and also the grandfather of Ramesses II. So it's one of any one of those three that was in the time period where the Hebrews were expelled from or escaped, depending on your point of view, from Egypt. So there's a definite thing you could have done with Christian tourism, which is a big thing. There's different things that we forgot about, and we had that money here, and we didn't know what to do with it. We wanted to get another ride on Clifton Hill rather than exploit the fact that we had a Ramesses I here. Now, Ramesses I has ended up, I think he's gone back to Egypt by now, but it was an extraordinary thing, and we didn't know what to do with it. Oh, it's just some old damn mummy who was
nobody Yeah, but back in that time, nobody did historical tourism. Historical tourism has been something that has come on of late.
But the fact of the matter is, they could not even exploit the fact that we had Rameses the first here in the Niagara Falls Museum. They
Yeah,
couldn't, and the other attractions that were also there, but they couldn't. There was other Egyptian mummies there, but they
yeah.
couldn't exploit that. That was something that was, but they couldn't think that their minds couldn't wrap around that. They couldn't think, you know, we could tell people that the ancient uh, father and grandfather of a huge dynasty in Egypt is right here, and he's unwrapped, and he's become much more famous now that we couldn't do
Oh,
anything about it.
yeah.
Like that, our mind, the council's minds, like they had no ability, flexible mind enough to think that that might be somewhat of an attraction.
Yeah. Right. History of Niagara Falls should be exploited to the max. Underground Railroad, War of 1812, industry, electricity. Yes, exactly. Thank you. Thank you for backing me up, Mike. Yeah, Niagara Falls Museum, world class and should have never was world class and should have never closed. I thought it was open still. Okay.
No, it closed. The guy that like
Oh,
even the guy who
not
bought
the
it
not the current museum.
offered the mummy. Guy who
Sorry, not
bought
the
it.
current museum. You mean not the museum on Ferry Street? You mean a different museum? Yeah. Okay.
No, it was a private museum
Yeah.
where pretty much that bird thing is right now.
Yeah. Okay. I got you. I don't think I was ever here when that was open.
You may have been because it was so I don't know.
No, that birdhouse has been the birdhouse ever since I've been here.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I've never seen
But
anything
anyway,
else.
yeah, there's a strong, not only that, but there's also a geological component. I'm talking about things that I would like to see if I went someplace. I would sure like to know about the geology of this area. It goes back
Yeah.
450 million years. If you go to the bottom of the gorge, that's 450 million years ago down there. The fossils they find down there are amazing. So there's a lot here that would attract people more people than just the ones that want to go on a ride on a giant Ferris wheel.
Yeah. Actually, one of the things that they do a lot in Europe is archaeology. So they look at the old state of the town, and obviously we've got no Roman ruins here in North America. Not suggesting that, but we certainly have archaeology for the last 400 years, and even native archaeology beyond that.
Yeah, there are some. Well, for instance, when I lived in Scarborough, there was a place called Tabor Hill. It turned out to be an ossuary for whoever, I think it was the neutral Indians that lived there at the time,
Yeah,
the neutral indigenous people, and
yeah,
that was an ossuary. It dated back to the 1200s, and the mound was there because they would put I suppose the dead bodies of their nation, and then they would cover it up with dirt, so it was a huge mound. We used it for tobogganing all the
of course.
time,
Yeah, I get you.
and then all of a sudden they changed the name from Tabor Hill to Indian Mount, which didn't work out too well
Yeah.
because in the long term, Indian Mount was not exactly the most like, I don't know. They didn't change it to Indigenous Mount, but anyway,
Well, there is, actually, Randy raises a good point here. While you're looking for an attraction to Niagara Falls, first you need to look at why everyone is choked to death with expense and tax on restaurants, which drives people away. Niagara Falls used to be a cheap visit, and now it's not. And thank
thank
you, Randy.
you, Randy. Thank
Oh,
you, Randy, for that,
yeah,
because that's been my biggest issue with Niagara Falls all along. You people come down here and they pretty well have to mortgage their house for a visit.
yeah,
They will. The whole idea here is not sustainable return trips.
yeah,
It's gouge them
Well,
gouge them as much as they want, as much as you can the first time in.
Yeah,
that's why too. A lot of people don't make a second visit. If there was a means where they could go to get a nice family vacation for a weekend and not have to sort of do any kind of bloodletting to get here, that would be.
Well, when I was a kid, we went to a town called Littlehampton on the south coast of England, and the good thing about Littlehampton is that if we went there at the beginning of summer vacation, sure, for 3 days, it would probably use every penny of my dad's pay packet for the week, and the money my mum had saved up. But later in the summer, we could come back for another trip.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's an important thing. Hotel calls sound every morning. Determine room prices. They have gouged the tourist to death. You're right, Randy. Yeah, absolutely. It's get the prices down. Hotel prices are not going to come down, but we do need to think about that, right? Heard there were changes to when the COVID came, and some things were sold from now. And yeah. Okay. Anyway, you've got the link down there. It will be on Facebook, and it will be on the YouTube live comments. I'll try to endeavor to put it back on the comments later on YouTube. All right. Okay. So, all right. So, next item. Right. We've got the situation is. Okay, so strong back-to-back earthquakes in Venezuela killed 164 people and injured hundreds. That's pretty bad news for them.
I think with Maduro being out of the picture, I think this will probably make it a lot easier for rescue missions to go in there. The United States has offered. Qatar, I think, has already sent someone in there. A lot of countries have already sent in rescue teams. Now this is pretty bad because the initial earthquake was 7.2, but the aftershock was 7.5, even more.
Yeah, and
there have been aftershocks throughout the night, apparently, or after that.
Usually usually the aftershock actually comes down. If you get a 7.2, you get then the next one is going to be like a 6.5 or something, and then it goes to 5s and 4s and 3s, right? You get
that was my understanding.
5 or 6 days. Normally, that's what happens. So I wonder if we've got a second actual earthquake with a different epicenter.
I don't think so. I think those people who study these things and pretty much are figure that's an aftershock. It just might be the earthquake happened and it released, and it didn't release fully enough, and it was able to release some more. But it was always been my understanding that and it seems logical that the first one would be the first big rip, and then there'd be a bunch of little ones afterwards, but not in this particular case. In this incident, but so we've already found that there was a bunch of people dead, and there's going to be a lot more, sadly. 168, I think, was it? What was the number they gave?
Well, according to this report, 164 dead, confirmed dead, 971 injured.
Yes.
Right. And of course, this report's at least 6 hours old, so likely that is probably out of date in terms of both the numbers of death and injured, because in an earthquake situation, there are typically hundreds, dozens, if not hundreds, missing at the time.
Yes. I don't know. All we can do is sort of hope that Canada plays its part and does something.
Yeah.
I know what it's going to what they're going to need. They're going to need clean water. The power is down and all that.
Yeah.
But I think the principal things is if we can't send a rescue, we used to have the DART group that would go in. It was a emergency type of rescue, but if we can't send them there, we can do things like send water. We can send water there. We can send food. We can send doctors and medical supplies. We can also send engineers and all that.
Yeah,
that can help
it's
stabilize
all about the rebuild. Yeah, it's about the rescue and rebuild at the moment.
Yeah, we need to stabilize the situation. There's a lot of houses there that they'll have to come down. When I was in Nepal and Kathmandu, right at the highest point of town, there was an old temple there, and it had been hit by an earthquake, and that whole old thing had to come down because there was cracks in it. Even the buildings they were still using still had cracks in them, and the old temple had to be brought down and dismantled. It was amazing though. It was all done by little Thai ladies carrying bricks and other sort of refuse, building refuse all the way down and back up again. I don't know. It was really cool, but there you go. Now somebody's got to go in there and say, "Oh, you're living in this house, and it doesn't look like much is wrong with it, but you better leave because."
And Rick is right that 7.2 is a huge earthquake, and 7.5 is really, really big. Absolutely.
Because, yeah, remember these are exponential numbers.
Yeah, they're
not incremental. They're not incremental in a line. They're exponential.
And the point being is that typically most earthquakes that we've experienced in our lifetime have been, the big earthquakes have been in the 6.5 to 7 range. Anything above 7 is absolutely massive. It's a killer quake. So to get 2 quakes at above 7 is absolutely massive.
Yeah, it also depends on where it is. Sometimes you can have a pretty big earthquake where so far away from
population, nobody dies. Yeah, absolutely.
And or it's dissipated by the time it gets to populated areas. So there's now back in the 60s they had the 9.8 or something. It was a huge earthquake in Alaska, and the actual harbor itself split open, and the ocean poured into that crack. There's a film of that where and everybody in Alaska was pretty lucky that day because it was a holiday and they were at home. So there were most of the people in around Juneau, I think it was, were fairly safe because they weren't anywhere near where the problem happened. But the whole roads were just split in half. And like I said, there was one guy with a film who happened to be in the harbor, and the bottom of the harbor cracked right open, and all this water was pouring into it. It's amazing, but that's the power of an earthquake.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Okay. So we, obviously we're going to have to be following that for the next few days. The reason it's of importance is, of course, because of Venezuela being one of the major suppliers of oil in the world.
Well, right now it's not a major supply of oil because it hasn't been able to really maximize its potential, but there still is a bunch of oil that comes out of there that is Chevron is probably the one mostly responsible for that. Now that oil, it's never mentioned anything in this report about what has happened to the oil fields, and that was, I thought, would be the first thing. After the human cost, what was then would have been reported on would be what had happened to the refineries, or not the refineries, but
probably in a different it's probably in a different location.
Yeah, so that is a mercy in itself, because if the earthquake did damage to the oil fields, it could take a long time to fix it. Yeah. And it doesn't seem to be reported that way. So the Venezuelan people may have got lucky here, and their major source of income for the country is still in good shape.
Yeah.
That would be a mercy in itself, because they're going to need a lot of money. Let's put it that way, to fix their country.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Moving on. U.S. Senate votes to pass Iran war powers resolution in a blow to Trump. Basically, traditionally, when you declare war in the U.S., it has to be done through Congress. It's not done by the president.
No, yeah, but they've been getting away with this for 75 years. Didn't we talk about this yesterday a little bit? But anyway, so for 75 years, the presidents of the United States of all stripes, Democrat and Republican,
that's true,
have been able to end round the requirement for congressional approval of war. So they, for one thing, they call it something different. They call it a policing action or this or that. There's names for, I forget what they call it.
We're responding to a request from the United Nations.
Or something. They get a bunch of different names for them, which allows the president to use, pretty much pronounce a war or a little war on anyone they wants to. Sadly, that's not the way the system's supposed to work.
Yeah.
And President Trump's really, really mad at the Republicans across the floor on this one. Some of the Republicans were brave enough to say that, no, you have to have congressional approval, and we'll put a lid on how much more war you can engage in Iran.
Yeah.
And I think they had that option from the very beginning, but didn't do anything with it, particularly the Republicans. But now that the war has not seemed to have gone too well, they did not get regime change, and they did not get they didn't get nearly what they want to do. As a matter of fact, what they did was allow Iran to close off the Straits of Hormuz. For some reason, I don't know why they didn't think that would happen, and that stifled the world economy. And that put the United States really behind the eight ball, because what do I do now? I escalate, and that will cost us a lot of blood and treasure, or find a way out.
But you know what's going on here, of course, Dave. I suspect that the Republicans in Congress, both in the House and in the Senate, have suddenly realized they've got 5 months left till the election.
I don't think they suddenly realized anything. I think they've seen this coming for a long time and hoped that this thing.
I agree with you. I agree.
Now, there's a couple of different reasons why there are some that agree that this war should be carried on. There are the neocons and stuff, like guys like Lindsey Graham. Like, he ain't going to pick up a gun and go there. That's for sure. But there's a war. He loves war, that guy, as long as he doesn't have to engage in it. And others want to keep the war going. I don't know how much more money and blood they want to spend on it. I don't know. Now, Trump's being smart. He saw he got roped into a dumb war, and now he wants out. And he wants out. He wants that strait opened up. But he's having a whole lot of trouble with Bibi. Bibi will continue to, because part of it is what is happening between Hezbollah and Israel. Now, Hezbollah is an ally of Iran, and Israel is an ally of the United States. And right now, Iran seems to have more control over its ally than the United States has over its. The big thing here, though, is they had a really big argument, I guess, in the White House. One of the senators beaked off to Trump, told him his war was stupid, and that he stuff like, Bibi's running the show. Why don't you, find a spine? I don't know what comment came from where, but
that comment was certainly on Facebook and social media over the weekend.
Yeah, they made it big. You gotta be very careful about stuff that comes off the net, because you don't know how much of it exists.
Oh, I know. But it was quoted by a particular senator whose name I just gone completely from my mind.
Yeah, I had it all here, but I've
Yeah.
you know, in any case, the problem here is the Congress should take over its responsibilities. It is losing its power. The power of the Congress is to balance the power of the executive. And in the Constitution, it says, or someone claims it says, that the executive will always be tempted into war. The executive power, the person that is the president, will be more tempted into engaging in war than the rest of the country. That's what they're worried about. That's why they put checks and balances on them. But the Congress has kind of relinquished those checks and balances. You see what happened in Vietnam, right?
Yeah.
You see what happened in Iraq. You see what happened in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
Those were truly expensive wars. And as far as the Iraq and Afghanistan, yeah, that was something. But the Iraq war and the one against Libya were more to protect Israel and destabilize the area. But anyway, I think this is a good move. Whether or not Trump, I don't think it has a whole lot of power over Trump. It's just a signal to Trump that you cannot forget about us.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And Trump is livid. Trump is livid that 4 or 5 Republicans in the Senate walked across the aisle basically and agreed with the Democrats on this one. People like Rand Paul.
Yeah, but he's a lot more of a thinking Republican than many of them.
Yes, brains and Republicans are not usually matched up too well.
Well, I've got a lot of respect for Rand Paul. He hasn't got the nous his father did, but he's still actually an interesting character, and I do listen to him a lot.
Yeah, he makes a lot of. He's a wily politician too. Like I don't know. His number one issue is the debt, and he keeps bringing that up over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Because he could see when any banker or anyone who even runs a household can see that runaway debt is the thing that's going to limit U.S. power. And right now, the debt, the cost of the debt is more than what is budgeted for the military. Mm-hmm. So at this point, it was budgeted for the military is $1.1 trillion or something. They're trying to get it up to 1.5.
It's
so huge. The debt payment, just the debt payment that you're paying, the interest is more than that. And look, Rick says no nukes, but there were no nukes.
Yeah, that's the whole point, I think, of what he was saying. Yeah.
But the problem is they did have when the JCPOA happened, right? They got 97% of the nuclear refined nuclear product out of Iran. 97% of it. Like all that stuff is still in Iran right now. It might be all dust and buried, but it's still there. So that wasn't accomplished. And Obama's deal also brought in the Chinese. They brought in the Chinese, the Russians, the Germans, the Brits, the French. They had a lot of eyes on this.
Yeah.
From all different, like the countries that normally don't have a whole lot in common. They did have something in common when it came to Iran getting a nuclear weapon. They didn't want it to happen. They all cooperated.
Yeah.
In this. And they had inspectors all over the place. Then Trump got jealous of what a great deal it was, and he like probably under the prodding of Netanyahu, he collapsed the deal. This doesn't say a whole lot about the United States. What does this say about the United States? Don't make a deal with the United States because the next president just might dissolve that deal. What's the point?
Yeah.
What's the point of making a deal with the U.S.
Yeah.
when it depends on what president's in? You know.
Yeah. And well, that's true of any democracy. Theoretically, we can take away laws implemented by the last government, but 9 times out of 10 we don't. We want reform, but we do it in a way that is subtle.
Well, usually when you make a deal with another country, you hold on to whether or not it was done by
exactly. That's
what?
yeah.
Who negotiated the? I think it was the Harper government, wasn't it? That signed on to the. No, it was the Mulroney government that signed on to the free trade deal, wasn't it? The Mulroney government. That's a conservative government, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
every government since has not dissolved that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Even after it was signed, and the Liberals were really angry about it and said that's really bad for Canada. Once they got in power, they did nothing at all because they could see the deal was really good for Canada. So, normally when you sign a deal or something like that, you stick with it. But the Americans, right? Who's going to sign any kind of deal with them? They seem to be changing their mind at a whim. What's this? I went to go clean out the chat and I saw carpet bomb. Now I didn't put there, and you're sending the Stasi after me, and you seriously, and just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they ain't out to get you. LOL. Huh. I didn't really follow that too well, but we're fine for now. Yeah, Mexico. There's lots of stuff here that that I'm not clearly understanding. But anyway,
yep.
So I think it's a very good idea that the American government work the way it's supposed to do, and the responsibility for war measures or any kind of violent action like that should be upon the Congress. If it is an emergency, I think there's provisions for that. But this war was not an emergency in Iran. It was not an emergency. It was they did not. They complained that their allies didn't when they got into trouble and the Straits of Hormuz were closed. All of a sudden, they say, "We're our allies. We're our allies. What good is it being in NATO if we don't have allies to help us out?"
Yeah.
And well, they didn't ask anyone, did they? They didn't pre-inform anybody that they were going to do this war. It was all on them and Israel, and the NATO agreement is a defense one. The only time Article 5 has ever been invoked was to protect the United States. That's something that the Trump administration has had reluctance even admitting. Rubio finally did recently, but Trump never has. He just kind of think, oh, well, yeah, maybe they were there, maybe they were in the sidelines or something of that kind. Well, so anyway, the problem here is who has responsibility for war, and the Senate has made it very clear they don't like what Trump is doing and trying to limit his ability to go to war, because this war was a foolish war, not well planned out, and alarmingly, the Congress and the Senate is saying, "Wow, we better start doing what we're supposed to do, and limit his abilities to do that, because what's going to be the next war?"
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. All right. Okay, so let's come back to something local. Niagara Falls being promoted in Europe. We know that recently Mayor Jim went to Bulgaria and Turkey, and as part of a trade mission. And I guess that as part of that, of course, people are talking about Niagara Falls.
Yeah, this is still very curious to me. This is about, I think, the third time we brought it up on this show. Is the is you know, I mean, it's the third time. I think we're kind of whipping it to death. But the fact of the matter is, why was it Niagara Falls? Why was the outreach to Niagara Falls? Now they're talking about the Istanbul Tourist Authority or something was like the largest or something. I don't know, but they're
Turkish Travel Agency is the second largest association in the world,
yeah,
behind the US.
behind the U.S. So that's big. That's a big deal. It is still a mystery to me why they reached out to Niagara Falls, because in the articles it does not say where else they're reaching out to. So this is a kind of a combination effort between Bulgaria and Turkey, and why they zeroed in on Niagara Falls is curious to me. Yeah, well, we are an outstanding.
We're a world famous resort.
Yeah, but we are a city of 100,000 people, right? Why isn't this approach being taken with the province, or with the province and the city combined? So it just is a little bit interesting to me why they would pick Niagara Falls and why they would sort of make this kind of proposal via Niagara Falls. It's very interesting. So now, so of course, Jim's out there trying to sell Niagara wines and try to get Bulgaria and Turkey to buy stuff that's made here. And I suppose we could turn around and buy stuff that's made there.
Yeah.
But it seems like two entire countries are negotiating with one city mayor, not even the region. So it's curious to me.
Yeah.
None of that has been really well explained.
Yeah. And it was never explained. Yeah.
Keep everyone off balance. What was that about the quick draw in the U.S.? The Trump quick draws from the hip to keep everyone off balance with their attentions drifting all over the place. Yeah, he's a master at that. He's a master at deflection. You can even, when somebody asks him a question, you never get an answer to the question. You get something, just verbal diarrhea, but something that will enhance his particular. Oh yeah, well, what about that earthquake in Venezuela? Well, we won the war in Iran. Well, what's the difference?
And okay, so Rick is basically saying they heard of the Ferris wheel. They heard about the Ferris wheel. That's why they're coming from Bulgaria and Turkey.
Yeah, it could be. It could be. They want to tap into our Ferris wheel technology. I think that the Chinese have already stole the plans.
Yeah. Well, I think the Chinese would build it, right? Yeah, like we want that. Yeah.
Yeah, that would. So, yeah, if they build it,
Jim has a vision that takes him all over the world as he sells out Niagara. That's an interesting concept there, Rick. Sorry, Randy.
If Jim had approached them, I would say that, I'd not say that he doesn't, but I would say in this particular case, according to the articles there, he was approached, or at least Niagara Falls was approached.
Yeah.
So it's just very, I'm good. I'm glad with it. If it's going to bring money and tourists into Niagara Falls, and if it's going to ignite an exchange of people coming from Niagara Falls to Bulgaria and Turkey to do tourism, and there is a business trade balance between Bulgaria, Turkey, and Canada, but it seems like they're kind of concentrating on one area of the Niagara region right now, which just is just very interesting to me. Why they would make that approach?
Well, yeah, okay. We'll still learn further, I'm sure. Okay, so Trump signed a new order for powerful quantum computers.
Yeah, this is very interesting. If Trump signed anything that's valuable, this is one of those things. I don't think there was any option here at all. He was going to sign this no matter what. it kind of it was a no-brainer basically. So they're working on a computer that's based not on your regular computing power. This is based on physics. It's a quantum computer. Now, the difference between quantum computers and regular computers is quantum computers are extremely powerful. The problem with quantum computers is the technical wizardry it takes to build one.
Yeah.
Now, we mentioned this. Yeah. Now, day to day, we don't use quantum physics at all. If we're building a building, we use Newtonian physics, basically, right? If we shoot a rocket to the moon, and we're going to use Newtonian physics, but quantum physics is the next step up from Newtonian physics. It is based on Einstein's discoveries of curved space, and then you have to get into not based on Einstein so much, is more like Niels Bohr and those, where the subatomic particles and that kind of thing. It's it defies logic. When you read about quantum physics, it defies logic basically. Well, anyway, they're using the power of quantum physics to drive a computer, and it's going to be
what is supposed to happen. It's like your brain, insofar as you're thinking through a problem and another idea pops up, right? Just an idea pops up, which then sets off on another pathway before it comes back to complete to add its results to the list.
Well,
you know, so it's more like a brain. It's supposed to be more like a brain in terms of how it operates. Anyway, yeah. All right.
Let me just figure this out here. Okay, here. This is what it says. Let me just get this definition out there. Quantum or classical computers use sequential logic standard bits, 0 and 1s, to process data. Quantum computers use subatomic qubits that leverage quantum mechanics, allowing them to exist as both 1 and 0 simultaneously, kind of like Schrödinger's cat. Schrödinger, well, I can't remember the guy's name.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Fundamentally alters how to process information. So it is, it's like the next level. And you can find explanations of it here. There's all kinds of them. Every time I think I've learned it, I forget it, because it's a little difficult to kind of rationalize how.
Well, what it is, it's trying to be more like the human brain. The way you think is suddenly you're looking at a problem, and kapow, you go off to you go off to think about another problem, or part of the brain does, before coming back and feeding the results in.
Well, I'm not sure what it's trying to do, but you don't want it to be like the human brain, because the human brain is not exactly the most consistent thinking machine there is.
A version of the human brain, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Right.
And here's something interesting. I heard this from Jon Stewart just this morning when I was looking through things. Jon Stewart said that Trump claims that he is the only president ever to take a cognitive test. Yeah. And Jon Stewart says, "Why do you think that is? You're the only president that required a cognitive test. Why do you think that is?"
Mm-hmm. Okay. Rick is saying, "Beam me up, Scotty."
Yeah.
Beam me up, Scotty. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Moving on. Got that one. Okay.
Anyway,
Okay. There's an annual employment inventory, a snapshot of a snapshot of Niagara. Basically, they're looking at more than 13,000 businesses and how through May to August, and how they've basically been growing. You know, what their employment situation is.
All right, let's. I'll do another explanation on this. It's basically what they've done is they've taken 5 kids, post-secondary kids, and they've got them to go all around Niagara and talk to every business possible, big or small, and ask them about how many employees they have, what they're, anything you might want to figure. They probably have a list of questions to ask them, but they have conversations with all these businesses, and they're trying to figure out basically what is essential about every different business. It's basically like a doomsday book, I would think, because they're going around and trying to figure out how many employees, how much, what do they do, this and that. What are we producing in Niagara Falls? How many employees are being produced? How many employees are the number? Of course, you're going to find a lot in the tourist trade and hotel and restaurants because we're a tourist town. So they're trying to determine that. They're trying to determine the fabric.
So they're looking at business growth and business growth, workforce trends, etc.
Yes, it's very interesting, very, very interesting actually, and that was a couple of days ago that I read that. We'll get back to it. Yeah, here we go. 13. Well, day before yesterday. So 13,000 businesses to be visited. It's a kind of a unique approach, though, isn't it? So it's business by business, conversation by conversation, and it's a bunch of kids basically going around and doing collecting all this data. It's a summer-long initiative. From storefronts and offices to industrial shops and service providers, employers from all corners of the region are being asked about workforce needs, business challenges, and future planning as part of the annual summer-long initiative. So this is happening annually. We try to capture the current snapshot of business economic landscape every year. That's well put.
Yeah, I responded to one of these. Dave, I responded to
Niagara Employment Inventory, NEI.
Yeah. I responded to one of these on behalf of our firm a couple of years ago. So yes, because when you were talking about it there, I'm kind of going, oh yeah, I remember that. We was being asked a lot of this. So basically, yeah, we had a kid came in for about 45 minutes, high school kid.
Yeah, that's what it says. It's post-secondary school kids. It's a good summer job for them.
Yeah.
I think it's a really cool job for a high school graduate.
Yeah.
You know? It's actually, it says it right here. 5 post-secondary students endeavor to visit every business in the region with public-facing interest or signage welcoming the public. So they're not going to dig into anything that isn't overtly out there, you know, something that's not advertised or whatever. Yeah. So I'm sure there are businesses.
No, we had one of these visits a couple of years ago, and I remember chatting for about 45 minutes with them. I'd love to chat to the kids because I like to see what they are bringing to society. I like to see what their views are on society. I always answer their questions, absolutely, but I also ask them a bunch of questions as well.
Well, yeah, that's good because it says conversation. It doesn't say questions, really, does it?
Yeah.
But basically, we're collecting data. What kind of questions did they ask you?
Oh, just a whole bunch of things. More or less, they want to know about employees. And with this situation, they're not knowing whether the person's an employee or a contractor. They're just they're not getting into technical discussions about that. How many people have you got working here, at the moment? What kind of business this is, what you're doing, what your business growth plans are.
Yeah.
You know, because at the time when they came around, we were looking for new offices.
Yeah, I wonder if they've talked to Ferris Wheel International.
Yeah.
So anyway, here it breaks it down. Basically, the NEI data provides the location and other details of 1,004, well, pretty much 147,000 full and part-time jobs from participating businesses. Remember, they canvassed 91% last year, which is their best showing so
Pretty
far.
good.
So 91% of all businesses were actually had a conversation with them. And the retail trade, so basically in 2025, that was last year, with the highest percentage of jobs were retail trade, 17%, education services 15%, and accommodation and food services 14%.
Yeah.
You know,
well, in a way,
retail trade.
Yeah, in a way, retail is the easiest to get to in all sectors because shops are open.
Yeah, they're open and they're out there.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think I really like the idea. What?
You just got to make sure you're with the shopkeeper, but it's not a busy time at the moment when you're speaking to the shopkeeper.
Or you could come back when it's better for them. Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, exactly. that snapshot they're talking about will give you a very good idea. And this would be great for historians too. And you can, once they get enough data too, let's say if they do it over the space of several years, they can start to look at trends that are happening in Niagara or weaknesses that need to be bolstered. But the very idea that they have this snapshot of how Niagara functions, very few of us really look at the big picture, but you can pretty well get a good idea of the big picture just by reports that they're giving.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And the thing is you come and speak to a business and say, hey Dave, how things are going? Oh, not very well, not too bad, Peter. I'm thinking about taking on 2 extra staff this year, right? And now I come back 2 years later, and hey Dave, how things are going? Oh yeah, not so well as they have been. I'm actually having to consider laying off a couple of staff this year, right? Those kind of trends may be something that was more widespread in society.
Yeah, you don't know what you're going to get. I think it's just very positive for the kids too that are doing it.
It is.
The young graduates, they're really involved in something that's going to be very important. Plus, the kind of skills they're developing, interpersonal skills, they're going to have to interview and engage in conversation with a lot of different people, and they're going to have that conversation in a way that doesn't get lost in conversation. It actually comes back to point every time where they can collect the data they need and get that snapshot. Anyway, we're getting close, and I'm gonna talk about Gaza again. The UN determined that Israel has committed a genocide and that they're cruel and unusual the way in which they do things. Remember, this is not really a anti-Semitic. It's just that it is how Israel conducts itself. And it talked about, in that little video they sent, it talked about how a child was shot. A child was shot by the IDF when there was nothing going on. No one was throwing stones or anything, but the kid was shot anyway. And then a bunch of the army guys came around and watched him bleed to death. It took 45 minutes to bleed to death. They made no effort at all to get somebody in there in an emergency. At other times, we're told that when there is an emergency, someone does get hurt, they stop the ambulance and make it wait at checkpoints and won't allow the ambulance through. When a young American got beaten, nearly to death by a bunch of settlers, the ambulance that was carrying him to the hospital was held back for 2 hours. If they'd got him to the hospital, he would have survived. He didn't survive because he couldn't get medical treatment. Yeah. It's cruel and unusual what the Israelis are doing, and more of that is being exposed. and more politicians are trying to hide their APAC affiliation. And remember, when I
Basically,
started,
this
yes,
comes from a commission of inquiry of occupied Palestinian territory.
that's right. And this is not the ICJ. No,
No,
it's not the International Court of
this
Justice.
is the United Nations.
United Nations.
Yeah.
And it's going to be harder and harder for the United States to. They're always the ones that veto anything against Israel, no matter how just that is. And I would like to tell you that this isn't anti-Semitic because where I get most of my inspiration from when I think of this are from Jewish thinkers. It's like Elam Pepe, he's an Israeli, born in Israel. Miko Peled, Gideon Levy, Gabor Mate. These are all Jewish or Israeli intellectuals that are voice a lot of problems with this. Albert Einstein had issues with this. We just mentioned Albert Einstein in a little bit, but basically, if I can get these, I'll get a bunch of names here quickly, if I can show them to you. Yeah, so notable figures who criticized Noam Chomsky, of course. Albert Einstein was famous. He didn't want an ethnically exclusive Jewish state. And Gideon Levy was an Israeli journalist. Elam Pepe, an Israeli historian. Gabor Mate, a well-known Hungarian-Canadian physician, Holocaust survivor, who frequently speaks out about the treatment of Palestinians. Mandy Patinkin, the Jewish actor and singer, heavily criticized Israel's political leadership. Zionism is not the same as Judaism. And if someone tries to tell you that if your criticism of Zionism is anti-Semitic, that's a lie.
Yeah.
Anyway, so maybe something will come of this. We find that the all-powerful AIPAC and Israeli lobby is being shaken up a bit. Let's hope that continues, because right now the American politicians don't have a mind of their own when it comes to this. Anyway, without further ado, I bid you adieu and pray for peace.